you get the player you really want to play with finally on your team, and it can make you a different player yourself. So we'll jump into the ban phase, see who we're going to get rid of.
Well, this one's interesting. A Maverick ban will go. And I say interesting because on a map like Chalet, we can see Maverick bans. We see Thatcher bans. What's going to join them? A Thatcher ban. Okay, so they were flipped. That's it. Usually it's Thatcher Maverick.
Mm-hmm. But there's nothing too crazy going on here. And also, on a map like Chalet, I do think that these bans are both really important. We've been seeing both Thatcher and Maverick banned out on Chalet before. This is not the first time this has happened. And it kind of reminds me of like Clubhouse, for example. Often on Clubhouse, you'll see two hard breachers or both of the Maverick and the Thatcher ban, just so you can limit the options for the attackers. So nothing surprising going on here. The Kaid is going to be the answer to a Maverick Thatcher ban. If you don't ban the Kaid after those two ops are banned, then you are going to have a real tough time on attack.
Well, for DarkZero, that's what spells trouble, right? They'll be starting on defense, and if the defense are weaker now, then that'll be something to watch. Same for attackers. In terms of the Soniqs lineup, they like to bring the Zero and they like to bring the Lion, and it's no surprise that those are the operators that we're going to see get brought forward. The 6 picks for both teams will be a smoke onto a Vigil, and Yeti going off the Zofia, but might he think otherwise of it? No, he picks the Sledge at the last second. I know that we are now 5 play days into this third stage, but bears repeating that the changes that have been made to both Mute and Sledge have had profound impacts on the way that both of those operators function. For Mute, there is now a height that his jammer stops working at, which means that when you put a jammer down, it does not block the hard breach on the entire wall. It'll only go about 2/3 of the way up, give or take. Maybe even 4/5. Depends on how you want to see the wall. As for Sledge, well, he doesn't have access to that SMG-11 anymore, so his fragging potential has been reduced ever so slightly.
Something I want to take a look at here when it comes to the lineups is we just saw a clear favorite being brought that is really surprising. Smoke was done away with, and instead the Tachanka. Now, it wasn't a direct pick off of the smoke onto a Tachanka. Canadian switched off smoke into Vigil. But the key point here is that you've got a Tachanka as a preferred means of denial over a smoke. That's something that we've been seeing a little bit more of lately, and it can work in hyper-specific scenarios. So I wonder where NJR is going to use those mollies. That's my big question right now. Yeah.
I hate to be the one to say this, but just based off of my own memory, I don't know if we've seen any real successful or pivotal Tachanka plays. I mean, there was obviously that Bananas 4K from Chala back at the Mexico Major, if people will recall that one.
But that was just as good.
But other than that, I mean, we see smoke clutches all the time. Could it be that Tachanka just hasn't been fully fleshed out yet? I'm not entirely certain.
So my take on it is this, Parker. Tachanka has a higher skill ceiling. Oh, hang on. Run out from Canadian, and he is not going to net anyone. He'll get back into the building. Very brazen play from him, though. We can talk about Tachanka later. We'll table that one for now. There's some action starting to brew here as the Soniqs are looking to take control of Library. Hyper, the one to try and stop that. Oh, very dangerous, very exposed positioning, but he gets out of there just barely. That was scary for a second.
An upside play that we saw on what is a downstairs defense. So DZ gambling on the bomb site that most teams seem to have severe allergies to. This is not usually that defendable, but maybe they know something that we don't. As you can see, the heavy off-site presence as the grenade goes out, and man, Hyper is having some severe difficulties with that drone dancing around him. Down the main stairs, one will go to try and contest, but Hyper is prepared and ready for that. The bullets just whiz over his head. He's still on drone, finally swatting away that pesky device, while Yeti will go above. They're trying to pinch him out of this location. He created a way to get back to the bomb site as well from that same angle, but I'll have to approach up and see if somebody's playing over by back bar. Hyper's actually made his way down, so there's nobody there anymore for him to deal with.
There is still one roamer. That's going to be Canadian on the Vigil, and he's gone, well, uncleared. He's clearly detected as he uses the impact, but he'll use that actually to cover his drop into dining. Now, using his ability, he might not be spotted by the camera, but he didn't have it on for a second there, and I think that, yeah, the Soniqs are aware of his position. The marks come out. Canadian's just trying to delay, though, as much as he can as we hit the last 30.
He's doing a great job of that, while the rest of the Sonics will push towards the site, but they run right into Eclipse, who gets the very first kill of this matchup. Canadians still on the roam, and the Sonics with 20 seconds left don't know if they have the ability to track him down. Their focus is going to be somewhere else. He completely botches the shots onto Yeti. The equalizer comes out, and now Sonics can drop into the bomb site. Yeti looking for that opportunity, but Pambazoo is ready, prepared and waiting. DZ cleaning up shop as all of the numbers for Sonics dwindle. They try to fight back, and they find one kill in the process. The Super goes for the plant with Kansan covering. Do some damage to NJR, but he doesn't see Eclipse running on up, and DZ takes the first round.
Wowee, Parker, what an interesting round. So you talked about how that bottom site, often teams are allergic to it, and the reason for that is there's just too much for the attackers to open. You've got your snowmobile garage, you've got all the wine cellar walls. It's difficult to hold. But Thatcher Maverick ban, oh boy, that makes it a lot harder to open those walls up. It makes it a much more difficult prospect in general. And because DZ knows that it's going to be difficult to open those walls, they can kind of rely on their actual site defense a little bit more. They extend their roam to be a much more involved roam. And I love that. It worked magnificently for DarkZero. Sonics had even, I would go so far as to say that Sonics Clear, while maybe a tad bit slow, was solid. I mean, they lost the initial fight. They lost the first player there. But still, the Sonics did a good job of corralling the roamers for the most part. The one exception is the ever-slippery Canadian, who did an amazing job on his 6-pick Vigil of just constantly distracting and harassing Sonics from the one place that they had not cleared out. And you really got to appreciate the kind of the nature of that roam from DarkZero. And while you should also respect the clear from Sonics, it just wasn't adequate.
10 seconds left.
Well, stuff well done, and time obviously not being in their favor. We'll see a Thunderbird come out, by the way, the newest operator that is available in competitive play. Was in competitive quarantine. So the Sonics actually might have the highest pick rate with Thunderbird thus far. For those of you who are not familiarized, she is a Canadian operator, indigenous. She has 3 stations that are called Kona stations that you put down, and if you walk into the circle around them, its radius, it'll give you a little shot, and that shot will give you some HP. So very similar to Doc, those Kona stations will regenerate over time, and they can even work on the attackers, so you have to be very careful about where you put them.
We've also got... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've also got a Finka being brought on the Sonics. So there's a whole slew of heal abilities being brought by both teams.
Eclipse is very wary of this, and he'll juggle the ADSs on the stairs. Bear in mind that Finka has access to grenades, so she can toss out those explosives and deal some damage, should she choose to do so, and that's exactly why the ADS was being juggled in that spot. Additionally, DarkZero has put down that Kona station so that Eclipse can survive maybe a little longer once it eventually regenerates. Out go the grenades, and, well, there's nothing to go from them because there's still more ADSs that need to be taken care of by the Sonics. And Kansan seemed to have used all 3 of those flashbangs. Pambazoo watching the same angle. So at least if you're Eclipse playing in that spot, you're not necessarily playing to die. You've got your teammate backing you up. This dance with death is occurring on the windows, looking into Solarium, and both teams are wasting a ton of time. But the good news is that for DarkZero fans, they want to waste time as much as possible.
Now, Pambazoo is actually really exposed. He's relying on his reactions, and it'll do him justice as he gets nearly a second. But Yeti will make the rappel in and win the fight against Eclipse. There's a second for Yeti. Huge double piece for the man as soon as he secures this kill. And now the Sonics find themselves up 1 player. They lost the initial fight, Kansan going down on the window, but that's a win. That's a solid execution in Solarium.
Really well played by Yeti, and there's a reason why he's been the 2nd best performer thus far on Sonics, taking up more of an aggressive role and not necessarily playing as more support-focused as he has in the past. With it, his stats have gone up significantly, and he's taking engagements that we know Yeti of old was capable of taking and winning. It's funny now that Yeti's gotten to this age because he gets shuffled off and relegated towards the more support-oriented roles while the young gunners come in. But for people who remember Yeti at the onset, well, he was a terror, and he still got an opportunity to do more damage, by the way. Those 2 picks that he got losing Kansan next to him means that with 30 seconds to go, the numbers for DZ quite weakened. And he'll creep up through Trophy and watch, but a nice shot from Canadian, punished by Yeti, a 3rd kill Looking for more? Shrugs off some damage over by Kitchen, but I don't know if he has any intel. NJR will end his reign of terror. Numbers even with 10 seconds to go. Another from NJR. Beautifully played. Leaving Super in a 1v2. Make it an OV2. Super can't accomplish anything with the shrewd angle that NJR was playing. And DZ have won both of their defenses thus far.
Wow, what a hold there from NJR. Really holding it together for his team. That's beautiful stuff. I gotta say, at the offset of that round, I really did think that the hold inside of Solarium for DZ was going to be enough, especially because of this cheeky angle Pambazoo was playing there. He was actually fully exposed to the players on Rappel, but they did not know that. Nobody checked his specific spot because why would anyone sit there? So I thought that Pambazoo was going to be able to hold that down with his teammate on the staircase. I thought DZ had Solarium on lock, figuring, okay, Sonics are just going to waste a bunch of time until they eventually die, trying to push into these difficult angles. But Yeti proves me wrong. Great individual effort from him. He transfers that to a solid push in through Trophy. But when you came up against NJR, it just kind of all falls apart. And that sometimes happens with those SAS operators. It's why they're so coveted. It's not just because of the utility that Smoke has. Not just because of the mute jammers from Mute. It's because of that kit. The shotgun, SMG-11, SAS Defender kit. That is so potent. We're talking about the SMG-11 is the highest automatic weapon, or highest DPS automatic weapon in the game, and that shotgun has consistent one-shot capabilities. You're so good at holding those close angles, and when you put that in the hands of someone like NJR, I mean, it doesn't matter how much Yeti is popping off. At the specific angle he's addressing that fight, it's just he's at the disadvantage. And NJR, great hold together on site. Really, that's the story.
Attackers are moving to defuse the bomb.
Oh, well played, and once again, the story for the first two rounds has been very similar, Michael. It's been clock management from the Sonics. The first time, they had some trouble dealing with both Hyper and Canadian off-site. The previous round, it took 90 seconds for them to deal with Pambazoo playing inside of the closet of Master Bedroom and Eclipse playing on those Trophy and Solarium stairs. So the Sonics being a bit lethargic here on a map that is typically very friendly to the attackers. Now, could it just be that the Sonics are having a bad day? That's entirely within the realm of possibility. But this is the same Sonics roster that in their most recent match against XSET showed some serious stumbles against a roster that does not typically compete at the top of the NAL. So maybe there are some greater things at play for the Sonics, but obviously that's just idle speculation on our part. This third round gets underway, and it's a bar gaming defense, it would appear, for DZ. We'll see what they can do. Once again, their offsite presence is going to be quite strong, characterized by NJR on this position, and he's going to immediately drop out of library as tons of secondary gadgets are expended on his spot. But none of those grenades and none of those flashbangs will work.
Yeah, that's going to leave Hyper on a solo hold upstairs. He does, I believe, have somebody supporting him farther out. That's Pambazoo. Actually, there you go. The top of blue stairs. But either way, this is a difficult position to hold. You don't have the aggressive positioning inside of library. That's usually your anchor point to work around. So that's a good step for Sonics, but they still have, you know, only half the round now. You talking about time, and I agree, Parker. It's been a problem here. The Sonics are going to have to be more careful with this next minute 20.
Oh, the very first kill comes out for the Sonics. That's the first blood that they've drawn so far in this map. It's immediately refragged, though, so a numbers advantage for Sonics doesn't hold up very well. In fact, they've actually lost it. As Yeti had gone down, but being Finka, you can get yourself right back up, and that's exactly what will happen. And then an Adrenal Surge pops out, still 2 remaining for Sonics to do something with. This is a bit of a brisker tempo that we've seen from them thus far. A minute to go, and they're very close to the bomb site. Like I said, no real advantage for them at the moment, but DZ might want to take some engagements, especially if they're feeling confident. You can catch the Sonics flat-footed. Seems to be the intent, but Grixer's going to be able to get away semi-alive. Yeti goes down, as does Grixer, after Yeti had picked up yet another kill. He's so far a formidable force for Sonics, but they're going to need somebody else to really pick up the mantle here. Could it be Kansan or Super? Half HP for the support with Diffuser in hand. Right now trapped inside a Mudrune. What was a disadvantage, though, will now be equalized as Kansan picks up Eclipse, who peeks the hatch and feeds a pretty free kill to the Sonics, leaving 20 seconds left for them to get the last 2 players in. The problem is that when Super goes to plant, a half HP Kansan will be the one to try and watch him. Smokes go out and back bar storage is being watched. Super's in now. Diffuser ready to go. Kansan taking some damage. Hyper doesn't seem to be aware of that. The position on the hatch is the Diffuser is at half, but Canadian shuts him down. Kansan will have to drop. And guess what was right underneath him? A frost mat. Even if the time hadn't run out, Kansan was as good as dead because of the gadgetry. Doesn't matter either way. DZ up 3-0.
Yeah, one of the big problems there at the end actually was Soniqs. Their use of the smokes were pretty abysmal. They actually smoked off the rotate for Canadian to swoop in and stop that plant on 000. So that's just that's a problem. But let's not get too focused on that. Parker, I think your point brought up in the last round is the most important thing to bring up here. Once again, it's the time management has been a problem. Now, in that instance, it wasn't as bad as some of the other rounds. You know, they hit for that plant spot in that 2v2 around 25 seconds left. But it still came down to the dying seconds, and it still resulted in a time win for DarkZero. And that's going to be a problem that needs to be corrected for the Soniqs. This is their opportunity to do that. They've got their tactical timeout. Time to talk about the issue and resolve it before it becomes more of a problem later on.
I don't know exactly what they're going to figure out here, because if they're having some difficulties with this chalet map, then it might be too little too late. Soniqs have played here before, by the way. They played back against Astralis in their very first game of this stage, and they prevailed 7-3 over that Astralis team. So it's not like it's a map that they are unfamiliar with. But I think it is uncharitable to describe Astralis and DarkZero as equals, either right now or historically. DarkZero have been a better team for a longer period of time than Astralis had. So I don't know how much we can glean from SQ taking a 7-3 victory all the way back in Playday number 1. Especially since after that, the Soniqs did an excellent job taking down Space Station and then struggled against XSET. They had last Playday off on September 15th, which was a week ago. Those were back when we were doing the Tuesday and Wednesday Playdays. Now we're back to just Playdays on a single week. So it's been a week since the Soniqs played. I mean, it doesn't make a huge difference for them, and it's been... You know,
I mean,
in 15 days since they last played this map. I don't think that much has changed at all. It could just be that this is a rough matchup for them. And given the record that these teams have against each other, by the way, DZ always beats Soniqs. So who knows?
Yeah, they typically do. I mean, the thing that I'm most worried about, to be honest, Parker, when it comes to the Soniqs is one thing is clear to me. They are a team that can get caught up in... oh, and by the way, I just checked the head-to-head record. According to what I can see, I don't think that the Soniqs have ever really beaten DZ.
I don't believe so either, but I'm not going to be certain, because it's hard for us to take into consideration...
I mean, they've won maps.
It's hard for us to take into consideration, you know, if there's ever been any qualifiers, if there's, you know, the Pro-Am, for example. At top-level competition, as far as I could find, this DZ squad has not lost to the Soniqs, at least not as far back as I could go.
You know, they've lost maps in best of threes, but they've never lost, like, DZ's never lost an actual match. As far as I can find as well, Parker. So, well, I'm sure we'll get fact-checked on that. But either way, the thing that I wanted to get out here is... Go back to the last match that Soniqs played. They played against XSET. We discussed it briefly. They lost to XSET. What happened there, it was Coastline. XSET put themselves up really, really big on Coastline attack. Got a lot of rounds on Coastline attack. And the Soniqs never recovered mentally. Like, it's clear they had an inability to play round by round. When they got their turn to go into the advantaged side, they couldn't make it happen, Parker. And that's what I worry about for the Soniqs. We're 3-0 for DarkZero right now. Soniqs just took their tactical timeout. If they can't correct course here, I don't think they will be able to in the long run of this map.
Yeah, I'm a little worried as well. I mean, you've got the favorable side. You seem to be doing decently well historically, so it's tough. We did get confirmation, by the way, that as far as our data was concerned, we were correct. Even though Soniqs have won maps in best of threes against DarkZero, they have never won a full series. That includes best of ones here. So for Soniqs fans, you're hoping that turns around.
Thank you, Jesse.
So far, not so good. And your fortunes might not be getting any better over time, especially if that side swap really does tend to favor the attackers. But timeout will hopefully work wonders for Soniqs, as we are now halfway through this round, and there's been very limited action. No players colliding with one another. DZ, very similar to what they did on their previous garage defense. They're going to be roaming and committing quite a lot off-site. Yeah. Though it certainly appears like they're calling everybody back, leaving Canadian to defend alone as he did before. He was perched over by the kitchen. Now he's in a very different spot, over by bar and stock. That's where Hyper had made his office previously.
So I want to talk about this Canadian roam later, That's a really important thing that we need to bring up. But for right now, the Sonics, they are going to be able to get this wall open. And that's really important with the Maverick and the Thatcher band. The job is still getting done. And with that wall open, they now have a direct avenue into sight. They're also going to try for the other. There's a nade to get rid of the mute jammer. And open sesame, says Super. So the utility play from the Sonics is so far routine. They're doing a great job of this. See if they can make the execute happen.
NJR was in an excellent spot to continue to do some damage towards Trench, but with that wall getting opened up, leading the snowmobile garage, he was forced out of that position. Right now, the Sonics guns are coming alive. 2 very quick kills, one by one, a third to add to that. Eclipse refrags, but numbers for DarkZero, not particularly good. Down goes Eclipse and Panbazoo, who has been the lowest performer so far. Will need the clutch out. He does a great job, but he can't get more than 2. So close. So close. 1 or 2 picks earlier on in the round for DarkZero could have made a huge difference there, but the Sonics just simply wear them down and outlast them in the very first round for SQ. Finds itself in our 4th round thus far on Chalet.
So, Parker, this is possibly the worst round for me to use the Canadian roam as an example of an interesting little facet with DarkZero, but I'm going to do it anyway, even though Canadian died as the first casualty in that round. Well done to Sonics, by the way. I just want to get this out of the way. Their utility play was excellent. Their setup was solid. They were airtight on their flank. That's the biggest difference between that round and all other rounds that we've seen from Sonics attack, is that they did not let the flank happen. They did not let themselves get harassed from the side without punishing the harasser. So well done to Sonics. Beautiful adaptation. That timeout clearly worked. What I wanted to point out was Canadian's roam for a couple reasons. Reason number 1, he has always been one of the best players, period, in terms of raw game sense. Canadian's positioning and awareness of his enemy's positioning is next level. And this has been, I think, even back when I played with him years ago, I was like 5 years ago, I still vividly remember that, and it's still true to this day, is that he knows where to put himself to have the advantage. And having him on a free roam, like clearly very detached from the rest of DZ, as Canadian is doing right now, it tells me that he's still capable of doing that. It tells me that DZ is aware of that strength, and most importantly, it tells me that DZ is on board with the Canadian siege philosophy. And that is long term, that is your empire building philosophy.
You talk a lot about the single addition that a player can do to a roster and be able to turn things around and turn the fortunes of a team around. And if you're DarkZero, the team that has made the most roster changes of the top teams in North America, you're hopeful that this Canadian addition can pay even greater dividends than anything else you've done before. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a matter of time.
Only a matter of time. One thing to note, by the way, you might notice some gun skins that appear to be new. Hyper's wearing it right now on the Roni. It's a Cyclops gun skin. The next wave of the R6 share team skins are out and available now, for the record. If you'd like to support the teams that have them, there is a lot of them, and far too many for me to name, by the way.
There's one.
Well, yeah, there's another one right there on your screen, and it's so proudly worn by Yeti, who has been phenomenal getting these first picks. All 3 of the first picks that have come out for the Sonics, the last 3 rounds, they've won the opening duel every single time. They've all been at the hands of Yeti, who now finds himself at a commanding 8-4 on his team. Outside of him and Kansan, the only other player on the team with a single kill is Grixer. So Rexon and Super, who are the 2 statistically worst performing players on the Sonics roster, are about where they've been for most of this stage through these 3 play days. The fact that Yeti is popping off the way he is allowing Sonics to stay relatively even with DZ.
Well, right now they're in the advantage. Let's see if they can get that for rounds, though. Even if Sonics take this one, there's still you have ground yet to cover. The important thing here is, once again, the Sonics have opened up the walls. They've contained the roamers, and they are setting up their utility in such a way that will make the execute into sight much easier. The biggest problem is going to once again be NJR. He's been a menace on this smoke in this specific position. This is where he's gotten all of his kills. See if he can make some magic happen yet again.
spot was very pivotal that Grixer is presently looking at as to where NJR had played before. And a bevy of flashes will go in to try and blind them. DZ have fallen off of the positions that they once held. They're playing much farther back amidst the smoke. Super getting it down, but Hyper fires away through it. It's successful. Diffuser will need to be picked back up. Yet he grabs it, but he's in the midst of smoke, and he gets dropped. Oh no, he doesn't see it. NJR collects a kill, and DZ are able to block Soniqs every step of the way. Like dominoes, they're falling. An equalizer potentially for SQ, but it's a daunting task to walk in and grab onto that diffuser with 10 seconds remaining. Kansan knows that's his job. In he goes, and Rexon falls next to him, and now Kansan is gone as well. The Soniqs' victory was short-lived. They'll take round 4, but DZ grabs 5 right back to maintain the lead they had before, and it's 4-1 for DarkZero with a single round remaining in this half.
So what's the difference between that round attacking onto Dining and the round that the Soniqs won attacking onto the bottom floor? It's quite simple. The start was the same. Canadian was the initial pick, but from there it differs. Oh, and the utility was pretty much the utility used from Soniqs was pretty much the same. They got the walls open that they needed open. You know, they were positioning themselves fairly well, but it gets different from there. Essentially, the most major difference, I think, is that DarkZero did not double down on their roam. When Canadian died on the roam, they didn't try to re-peek somebody else into it and give another kill over to Kansan. So that's a big difference maker. DZ already have less bleed. The second most important thing, and I think probably it's up there, I mean, you could argue which is more important, but is the fact that it's a different site, frankly. You've got a really clear crossfire down in Wine Cellar once you get both those walls open, whereas the attack coming just through the dining wall, I mean, you could argue Dining Hall is a bit of a crossfire, but nobody from the Soniqs is playing that, and it's not really that potent when there's nobody actually in Dining itself. So DZ don't overextend their roamers. They don't give another kill to the Soniqs. They use the utility well, and they have, frankly, a less of a crossfire to deal with, a much more linear attack, and that's through no fault of the Soniqs necessarily. They probably could have played vertical, but that requires more time, more clear, and that's been a difficult thing for the Soniqs. So, yeah, it's partially the nature of the site, partially the fact that DZ didn't double down.
That was an early smoke tossed out on the stairs.
Oh, wow, really? Yeah.
A very, very early smoke, and I have to wonder what the idea was for Pambazoo. When we see things like that, we can just say, oh, it was a mistake, but maybe they got a call that there was a push coming in. I don't know. A smoke going off 15 to 20 seconds into a round is very abnormal, even for the fastest teams with the fastest executes that we've seen.
It almost looked like he was trying to clip it through the wall, but as far as I know, you can't do that anymore, so...
I don't believe they clip through the wall any longer.
No, I mean, I'm sure they do in some specific spots, right? But still weird. The nades are missing here, and JR is going to survive. His ADSs are gone, though, and the second nade will also miss enough for him to live. Hyper's going to get the lead off. Down goes Yeti, and, you know, we were just talking about how important Yeti was to this initial execute.
Yeah, this breaks the streak of the Soniqs winning the first pick for the previous 3 rounds. Not all of them have immediately netted an advantage because DZ have been somewhat proficient on 2 of those 3 rounds at closing the gap and immediately refragging. So somebody else will have to take up this mantle. Rexon found his very first kill of the match just in the previous round. Kansan with 5. That's what you're looking at for Soniqs, and I know that kills are a bit simplistic, but this is a pretty grim tally outside of Yeti for the 6 rounds that we've seen. Grixer might be able to catch one, but just narrowly misses off on Canadian. That's a headshot he'll echo throughout the hall, I'm sure, as he hits the shoulder of the mute. He'll now play on the stairs and hold this very valuable piece of map control. He's been spotted by the Jackal tracks, and they'll ping away at his position. As Rexon wanders in the library with a minute to go. Another EE1D will pop off. NJR's dropped in the corner. He had nowhere to go, and now Eclipse is down as well. So far, this bomb site, Bar Gaming for DZ, looked mighty fine the first time around, but, well, it doesn't seem to be going that way at all for them with 40 seconds left, and the Soniqs find themselves in a 4v3.
Yeah, this advantage is going to be hard for DZ to surmount, especially with Canadian on such low HP, and he's still trapped on blue stairs. He has no real rotate potential. He's worried about the cut, and rightfully so. There's likely going to be one ready for the Soniqs, who are setting up for their execute into, I would assume, billiards. The diffuser's pretty far, though, and here come the gas canisters. The first of well, the last 2, and there's the last 1 as we hit the last 10 seconds. DZ just trying to hold on and win this one off of time, but that means they give up valuable real estate, and there's Canadian finally fell. The second kill for Hyper, he's gonna get a third. That's huge, but Rexon will clean up shop, and the Sonics will salvage a little bit out of this first half.
And that got scary for them because Rexon was the only other player that was still alive while Super was getting that plant down as far as my eyes could tell, and it's taken him a while to get online. I don't know if the Sonics have made a concerted effort to swap up Rexon and Yeti with the way that they play, but it is not uncommon for Grixer and Yeti to be the 2 players to steal the show for Sonics in terms of entry potential, refrags, and trades. But so far this season, Yeti has been the one tasked with doing that, and the stats don't lie. He's been doing a magnificent job, sitting in 6th place with the 6th highest rating, 2nd on his team. In terms of opening kills, he's been doing a marvelous job in that regard as well. And his primary focus is to get in, make space, and then work with the rest of his team to allow those support and flex players to take up space and get the diffuser down. Now, even though the scoreline tells you that DarkZero was the better team through that first half, there was some hope for the Sonics on the final 3 rounds. They took a timeout at the tail end of round number 3 when they went down 0-3 to DarkZero, and after that they managed to take 2 of the next 3 rounds, all while looking relatively comfortable in the process. Now they have what is the less favorable side on Chalet more often than not, as they will defend for the remainder of this match unless we go to overtime.
5 seconds left.
I want to see one around from the attacking side at DZ before we start calling anything here, Parker, because my initial inclination, from what I've been seeing from both of these teams, is to give my nod to DarkZero. As I did at the leadoff of this match, I still feel like they're the ones in the driver's seat. However, as you mentioned, and I agree, there have been some signs of life from the Sonics. One thing that troubles me, though, is those signs of life are mostly dependent on individual performances. The communication and coordination on the side of the Sonics has been not as strong as I think they would imagine, or they would desire. It's been lacking. And I think that's a major correction that needs to be made. Luckily for the Sonics, it's less relevant on the defense.
So we'll see a lineup here. By the way, DZ's rotation was the same through the 3 sites that they went to: garage, kitchen, and bar. They never went upstairs and defended that bedroom and office. And right now, first defense for Sonics is also not on that bomb site. So even though they might have some reinforcements put over in that area, as you can see on the corner side of office, with Pambazoo holding that angle, looking into library and firing away to give his position away, with Yeti playing at the top of chimney. Well, this is an interesting choice to not go to this bomb site, and I wonder if there have been some small changes to the bans that have prompted this. Either way, that's speculation for another day, as we're now halfway through the round, and things might be coming to a head upstairs on this roam.
Yeah, there's a lot of roamers yet to clear out here on the Sonic side, and you can see that they are staying firm in their positions upstairs. They know they need to kill more time. They can't fall back just yet. At some point, I'm sure they will, but now is not the moment. Here comes the clear from the nades and the stuns to try and put pressure onto Yeti, who adeptly evades the pressure and just positions himself safely in library.
There's a grenade tossed on out, or rather a flash tossed on out by Canadian, watching from that angle. Rexon could have potentially fought it, but decides against it. Sonics have made the call to get the troops back a little bit safer into this Bar Gaming bomb site, with Kansan still roaming down below. So all that space that was taken up on the top floor, Michael, is now mostly in the basement. And they're going to play off of that accordingly, with Rexon now joining, and he'll go for a full rotate, potentially towards West Main. Well, interestingly enough, or East Main, rather. At the top of the stairs, maybe. Rexon just wants to stay down there, and there might be a hatch that he can watch from that angle. Yeti is down below as well. Look at this long-range angle that he'll engage at with 30 seconds to go. This defense for Sonics is all over the place, but I think that's partially the point. Do DarkZero have any idea as to where all these players are? Can they bother to push the site? It doesn't seem like that's the case right now. Tick-tock, 10 seconds left. First kill goes to Rexon. All of the bodies except for one still alive. What is going on? Sonics on the stairs. Kansan with one. Grixer gets dropped. 3 seconds to go. Canadian down. Hyper down. It's all on the shoulders of Eclipse. And this off-site hold from the Sonics works out miraculously. DZ has no answer for it. And the gap between these teams is now but a single round.
That's some good stuff there from the Sonics, but mostly I would fault DZ for their trepidation in clearing out the top floor. They were clearly wary of that hold upstairs, and that's not what you look for. The Sonics played it very well, though. Obviously, well-timed on the fallback. That's, I think, the most important thing. They didn't waste an abundance of time, but they wasted just enough before they retreated. We've seen a lot of North American teams that will fall back at a minute 30 in similar roaming positions. That's the wrong call. The Sonics fell back at about a minute, so it could be better, but it's, they didn't sacrifice any picks, and that's the most important thing in the end, because when it came to blows, DarkZero had no advantage to base their attack off of. Where are we hitting that we have some kind of opening? There is no such opening, and Bar has always been one of those sites that's going to be a bit of a scramble, a mad dash for the win, hell in a cell, as we like to say. So, yeah, DZ needed to punish Sonics just a little bit more for that top stairs round, frankly.
10 seconds to go.
Well, fascinating stuff here on Chalet, and we seemingly have upended what we tend to see with a very defender-sided matchup. Of the 7 rounds played out thus far, 5 have gone to the defense. That is a tally for Chalet that is usually unheard of, but things change over time. Another Thunderbird sighting, by the way, as Kansan has picked up some serious kills over the last couple rounds to now be within striking distance of Yeti, but so has Rexen and Grixer. The only player in the lobby right now struggling to find the scoreboard is Super. And I know that it was a talking point for the desk, but so far Super's contributions come almost entirely off the scoreboard. And the teammates have talked at length about the leadership that he brings to this team, along with Joe, their coach. But Super obviously instrumental in guiding a team forward. The big problem for the Sonics, as was talked about on the desk as well, is that if 1 or 2 of their fraggers goes cold, Super is not usually the person who can step up in the fragging department from what we've seen on the Sonics. And that poses a serious problem. Super so far, through the 3 matches they've played, has but just 5 kills so far in this matchup. He has 0. And that's something that doesn't necessarily drag the Sonics down, but is worth keeping your eye on if the fraggers on Sonics are not able to keep up.
Yeah, it just puts more pressure on those fraggers. But that's not something that's been too much of a problem for the Sonics. And right now, they are starting to keep pace with DarkZero. It's not quite done, but they're getting there. Now, we're looking at, once again, this very linear attack into dining, this time brought out by DZ, and the difference, I would say, is that they're putting more emphasis on the top floor. So that gives you potential vertical play. It also means that you're not going to have to worry about your plant being denied from above. That's why they opened up that wall leading into office.
A bomb has been located.
It's been a sluggish start for both of these teams on their attacks, and for those that want excitement in the NAL, who want thrilling dashes into the bomb site amidst the danger of everybody still being upright, well, you're not going to get it here, at least not with the way these two teams are playing. If you're DarkZero, you are maybe starting to get worried, and if the Sonics take this round, wouldn't be too surprised if we happen to see a timeout, but over on the kitchen side of things, with 45 seconds remaining, DZ will have to deal with the roamers, yet still 2 members of the Sonics have been healed up from those Kona stations put down by Kansan. Supers wears off, but Rexen has a bit more staying power. Yeti just walks right past a drone, by the way. Down goes Panbazoo, and down goes Hyper as well. How does he find this? Yeti just picks up 2 kills, walks into the main lobby, and goodness gracious, he does some serious damage. Eclipse takes out 1, and NJR fights right back. Super and NJR will out dual pistol out, and it's a deagle from NJR to get the kill, but Rexen has his teammates back. It's all on the shoulders of Eclipse. 10 seconds to go, and he looks the wrong way. He hears Grixer coming, but he doesn't think he's that close. We have a tie game, Michael. The Sonics have dug deep and really found it over the last couple rounds. Since round 4, they've taken 4 of the previous 5, and DZ find themselves in trouble.
Yeah, so obviously, great flank there from Yeti, finding that opportunity, seizing it, and really, so this is it right here. That solidifies the round. That's the round done. At that point, you're looking at all your periphery operators on DZ, and you're thinking, hey, can you guys pick up like a 4K maybe, or like an ace to win this? Because that's the only real chance they would have had. So you're looking for a miracle play out of one of your players after Yeti does that. Well, really, I mean, that's DZ's fault. That's ooh. Yeah, letting Yeti just walk through the basement and up blue stairs. You can't blame it on anyone other than DarkZero. That's them, man. They gotta correct. They can't let that happen. Some pretty basic flank watch. What we often see is somebody in the basement for the attack, actually holding those lanes. You can also just have drones on each of the staircases, but of course, you know, that could be, you know, inconsistent if you have all 5 players up and there's no one watching cams as a dedicated player. You can also just point your guns at it. You know, you got a lot of options. Nomad's not banned, but yeah. And then look, I mean, we're seeing a Nomad obviously, so it's a problem for DZ. They need to correct that. But it's still big play from Yeti. Great job from him, and he is walking away with this match, Parker.
Well, just the Soniqs, thank goodness for Yeti, who had teased earlier on Twitter. I don't know if people had seen it, is that he had some makeup done on his wrist to look like a large cut and said that he wouldn't be able to play, and I don't know if his fans were alarmed by that or not, but he can, not only is he playing, but boy, 11-7, he absolutely can play, and he's leading the charge, finding great space. So many opening kills for Yeti. And his ability to find these openings, getting droned in on attack, on defense, playing off of cams and intel. And his team is putting considerable effort into feeding Yeti every single one of those picks. But he's also been quite reactive at the same time, snowballing from a pick here or there to then continue to hold map control either as an attacker or on defense, as we saw in that previous round with an impressive roam he had.
Yeah. He's definitely been a super important figure. Now, DarkZero starting to air jab things up as they clear from the north side over. This is a bottom floor defense. The Soniqs have a heavy roam. 2 anchors currently. DarkZero starting to drone out sight and figure that out. Hey, wow, lots of off-site presence. Maybe we should hit direct. And they are positioned to do just that. If Canadian opens this wall, and he will in due course, there you go. Everything's dealt with and open sesame. Now you've got your avenue straight into pillar, and still only 2 anchors to stop you from executing.
Kansan down below, the first bandit that I believe we've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong thus far, but a nitro cell goes out. That's one of the advantages of having that. Not just on the wall denial, even though that trench panel's been opened up, and now some soft destruction will go out as well. A nitro cell from Super goes, but I don't know if he was aiming for the opening or not, but it is a missed toss if the chasm was what he was looking for.
Yeah.
Had it gone off a couple seconds later, Pambazoo could have been the casualty there. 1 minute to go, and Pambazoo in that same position. Well, he's going to walk right in. There's an SMG-11 in hand. He sees Super. Down he goes. Unfortunately for the Soniqs, they lose the first, but they immediately trade it back. Kansan has his teammates' shoulders, and he does a mighty job on that. Hyper from above takes one down, but Yeti and Grix are getting on the fun. Canadian has to abandon the plant as now he's dead to Kansan. And the Soniqs have really heated up, Michael. They are just bullying DZ, and Eclipse finds himself as the final man in, where it's buried inside a connector to Kansan. The Soniqs have done something that they haven't been able to do in every round thus far, which is lead the matchup, and they have really strung together an impressive set of rounds. This is their match right now, and they're up 5-4.
That was a huge round for the Soniqs because for the first time ever, I would say that it wasn't predicated on an unforced error from anyone, whether it be for DZ or for Soniqs, really. That was just the Soniqs straight up taking the fight to DZ and being better, especially on that flank. You've got the Nomad in play. You've got a dedicated flank watcher, not only in terms of utility, but actually in terms of the actual player just staring at the flank. And still, Soniqs managed to pull off a flank. They double down on it, 2 players in, and it works for them. That's huge. After that flank is successful for the Soniqs, DZ now scrambling, and they're still also, very importantly, DZ are trickling their players into the site 1 player at a time. That causes a lot of problems, and it showed in that last round.
What do you suspect this DZ timeout is going to accomplish here, Michael? Both of these teams having huge issues with being able to drone in and know what to do next. And the team that gets that first opening pick, it tends to come quite late into the round. I think DZ is going to be able to fix their coordination with the couple rounds still remaining here with this timeout.
I'm I don't know. I expect to see one of two things, Parker. Either a much more structured attack round from DZ, so something really linear, trying to minimize the potential for mistakes, or B, they're going to do something wild. Based on the look on their faces, I'm thinking A, because they seem hyper-focused and they don't seem... Usually when you get those laughs and that little bit of joviality that comes with... you know, a team that's more loose and putting less pressure on themselves, you'll get those kind of wild rounds. Maybe the rush is in from somewhere. But I think with DZ, they're probably going to try something like a pocket strat, something specific. They mostly know, they should know that they're going to be going against Bar, so we'll see. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it, frankly, Parker. It's been a weird turn in how this has been playing.
We focus a lot on the impact that individual players can have on the team. For DarkZero, I'm sure that you are, or rather for anybody, I'm sure that if you are a fan of DarkZero, if you were a fan of Space Station over the last year and a half, you probably got very tired about us talking about Canadians' individual impact onto this team. Be it on Space Station coming in as a leader, or now DarkZero to institute or implement a system that DZ might not have had previously. And with all of the roster shuffles that DarkZero has undergone, you're hoping that Canadian will be that focal point, that lightning rod, the stability that you're looking for your team to get the best out of the players that you've brought in. Because on paper and in the server, DarkZero has a very good team. And I apologize that you are probably tired of hearing about Canadian, but it cannot be understated the impact that he can have on a squad. While we say this, because of issues that were experienced in Mexico City, DarkZero had the first 2 play days off. So far, DZ has only played 2 matches. Only 2 matches with Canadian as their IGL, and they performed quite well. They won against Mirage 7-4, but Mirage has looked like a bottom 2 team thus far this season, or at least bottom 3. And then TSM, who've had some struggles, DZ won 8-6. Well, of course, you take DZ to overtime, DZ's going to win. The point I'm trying to get at, and I'm sure you would agree, is that even as good of an IGL as Canadian can be, there's going to be some rough spots, and there's still going to be some adjustments that need to be made as they figure out this roster and they go through the maps. And by the way, Chalet is not a map that they have played yet through those 2 days in the NAL, so this is their first time playing this map with their full roster on DZ. There's going to be things to work through. And as good of an IGL as Canadian is, you can't change everything and have it be perfect overnight.
Did we mention that Canadian plays for DZ now? I don't know if you guys have heard about that. Big pickup. Thank you. Hold your applause. No, but I mean, DZ has been looking very different. Soniqs as well, though. We have to discuss this. We're looking at right now a Soniqs lineup that plays out just about exactly how we expect. Super's got 0 kills. Kansan and Yeti are both breaking double digits. X and Grix are picking up a lot of slack as well. And it's working for them. They have a very odd formula that is especially unique, and it's always cool to see something like that work. They're 1 away from match point here against DZ, and this is a match that I would have easily bet on DZ for, considering the performances we've seen so far through the stage. That is not what you want to see from Rexon. He dies to a Claymore.
Well, a run out upstairs by Pambazoo's Claymore. We'll catch him. You don't even really need to do too much. You just set it and forget it at this point, and then you move on. But DarkZero do something that they have had some struggles over the last half of this matchup, which is get that opening pick. DZ have not been so proficient at finding the first player of Soniqs and then immediately giving themselves an advantage. And, well, it doesn't seem to be really working for them thus far. A minute left, and they have not pushed the issue. DZ being very methodical about this, not too eager, not wanting to rush to the site too much and get ahead of themselves, because an advantage does not guarantee a round 1. We'll see what they do next. They toss out a smoke from over towards Mudroom. Soniqs, Grixer in particular, playing in bar in a bad place. Super finds his very first kill. It comes in the depths of round 10. There will not be another as he's punished by Pambazoo and a vault in from the Zolfia. He's tracking one over towards the back of the bar and will have to test his reflexes as DZ's numbers continue to drop. Soniqs want to put this one away. They have an advantage, but NJR says something about it. He has been so excellent in this matchup. Don't work with Pambazoo. two newest members of this team before Canadian joined the roster. Both young players will have to test their mettle against Yeti and Kansan, the two top performers from Soniqs. If I'm Soniqs, I'm very happy with the two players I have left. Diffuser going down from Pambazoo, NJR covering, but he's got too many angles to look at, and he doesn't see the Malusia Yeti. Goodness, the sight blocks his line of sight, leaving Kansan now to defend in a post plant. This almost seems certain to go in favor of DZ, unless Kansan can pull off a miracle. Losing some of this ammunition, trying to find if there's a foothold over towards Bar. There's a tight angle being held, and he'll walk across. Nice shot from Kansan, and two beautiful kills in a row. Diffuser's his as well. That'll be match point for Soniqs as Kansan is the hero. Lucky number 13 for him with those two kills. And Soniqs pick up their 6th round.
What a massive round from the Soniqs, and it's all thanks to Super getting his first kill in the match. Well done to him. If it weren't for that single kill, there's no way the Soniqs would have won it. And that clutch up from Kansan was pretty cool as well. That little moment there with the optic really was scary for a second. I actually thought that NJR was going to lose that. But either way, the result was clear. Soniqs take the win, and now match point. That's massive. We always talk about how Hell in a Cell is really encapsulated on Bar, and it was that round, that's for sure. What a weird collapse there. Many opportunities missed by DZ to get those picks and rack up the advantage. For example, specifically with the Jaeger, who's able to fall back so deep into that site and not get punished for so long.
All right, well, what a treat this has been for fans of the Soniqs. They are doing just a ton of damage to DZ, and oh my.
Now that's a lot of damage.
It absolutely is. Both teams have had struggles thus far on their entry, and this has been a very defender-sided Chalet. We have not seen an attacker prevail until round number 6. You have to go quite a ways back, and the only attacking rounds that have gone in favor of that side are for the Soniqs, as they picked up 2 in that first half. And we speculated before the side swap, Michael, that was bad news for the Soniqs, because we thought that, hey, this is an attacker-sided Chalet. Clearly, DarkZero were going to be in brilliant shape, emerging from that first half on defense 4-2. But boy, how wrong we were. And now through the first 4 rounds, Soniqs have matched that total. And they have done so fearlessly, with roams that leave us in many ways struggling to figure out who's rotating where. But for the Soniqs, it's working. And for DZ, they're struggling to figure out where those SQ players are.
Oh, Yeti almost got hyper there. He was so close. Just didn't peek enough to see the player prone at the bottom of that ladder. Unfortunate timing. He was actually expecting someone to be on the ladder. Now, Eclipse is trying to get the cut, but DZ's just a little bit too slow. Soniqs, and specifically Yeti, have already fallen off of Library, so the moment is gone. The opportunity lost, and the Soniqs will maintain their roam position upstairs without a casualty, at least thus far. There's always the potential for that to change. But yeah, I think that on the note of what you were talking about there, Parker, regarding the nature of this map, we are talking about a Thatcher Maverick ban Chalet. So that is a very different map. I mean, it doesn't matter what map you're playing, really, unless maybe it's Coastline. Usually, a Thatcher Maverick ban makes a massive difference, and it certainly does on Chalet.
Absolutely does. These are 2 of the most banned operators in the entire game, so they have a profound impact on these matches. Thunderbird Watch is still on, by the way. Halfway through, Kansan is on Thunderbird yet again. I don't think we need to go through it, but as you can see from the left-hand side of your screen, Kansan, Super, and Rexen all up a little bit HP. All because of that Kona Station, which means that the Kona Station is going to be on cooldown. Need we remind you that once you walk into the radius, it will heal you, and that includes over-healing you, as is the case right now. So a little bit extra staying power, though it is run out for Super and is about to do the same for both Rexen and Kansan. Opportunity to give them a little bit more of a boost with a minute left to go in what could be our final round between these 2 teams.
Well, we haven't seen an attacking team successfully execute the way that DZ is trying to execute so far. This site has been really good for both teams on the defense with the linear nature of this take. Canadian's going to be the first one down here for DarkZero. Now on the floor, he'll need to be picked up. He doesn't have the Kona Station, so he'll stay at low HP after he gets retrieved. Pre-Fire's coming in there, trying to get supers, the first casualty, but he persists. He doesn't have a C4 anymore. Only one in the pocket of Yeti. And here comes the plant attempt from Canadian. Will anyone stop it is the real question. The answer, yes, it's NJR with a miffed nade, and he's going to stop the plant as Super forces his way through smoke. Someone's got to pick it up, but here's a flank from Yeti. Once again, he's allowed to do this, and the Sonics will take the match. And what a clean sweep on their defensive half.
First time the Sonics have beaten DarkZero, Michael, and we got to be along for the ride. They do so in impressive fashion. At the tail end of round number 3, the Sonics took a timeout. After that timeout, they dropped but a single round.